32-year-old Jasmine Eason was killed early Saturday morning, according to police. Cordero Harris, the victim's boyfriend, has been charged with second-degree murder in her death. Eason's family said this situation is definitely unfortunate. Action News 5's Imani Williams has a story.
At 4:33 a.m. on December 9th, 2023, three children huddled in terror as they watched their mother take her final breath. While 32-year-old Jasmine Eason lay dying from a gunshot wound, her boyfriend Cordero Harris was already spinning an elaborate lie to the police, who had just arrived. He claimed masked intruders had broken into their Memphis home, shot his girlfriend, and stabbed him in the hand. But those three kids knew something the police didn't yet realize. They knew Cordero was lying through his teeth. The 17-year-old, the 9-year-old, and the 6-year-old had witnessed something far more horrifying than any home invasion. They had watched the man their mother trusted, the man she thought would protect her and her 8 children, become her executioner. What makes this case even more devastating is that Jasmine's murder could have been prevented. 2 years earlier, in 2021, Cordero had been charged with shooting at another pregnant girlfriend who tried to leave him. That case was dismissed due to lack of prosecution. The system failed that woman, and when it did, it signed Jasmine Eason's death warrant. This isn't just another domestic violence case. This is a story about how predators specifically hunt vulnerable single mothers, how they manipulate the system, and how warning signs get ignored until it's too late. What you're about to hear will make you question everyone you trust. You'll learn how Cordero Harris systematically targeted Jasmine when she was at her most vulnerable. You'll discover the shocking evidence that police found in that house that night, and you'll understand exactly how this tragedy could have been stopped. If you care about protecting mothers like Jasmine, you'll subscribe to help us expose these predators and the systems that enable them. If you don't subscribe, at least tell us in the comments why you think some stories don't deserve to be heard. Because every view, every comment, and every subscription sends a message that Jasmine's life mattered. We're watching to see who stands with victims and who walks away. Jasmine Eason wasn't just any victim. She was exactly the type of woman that predators, like Cordero Harris, actively hunt for. When they first met in 2022, Jasmine was still grieving the loss of her husband, the father of her 8 children. She was emotionally shattered, financially struggling, and desperately hoping someone would help her carry the overwhelming burden of raising 8 kids alone. Cordero didn't stumble into Jasmine's life by accident. Men like him have a radar for vulnerability, and Jasmine was broadcasting every signal he was looking for. A recent widow with multiple children, trying to build a braiding business from scratch, posting on social media about needing God's help to stay strong. She was the perfect target. What most people don't realize is that Cordero had done this before. His pattern was always the same. Find a single mother who's struggling, love bomb her with attention and promises, move in quickly to establish control, then begin the systematic destruction. The pregnant girlfriend from 2021 wasn't his first victim, and Jasmine wouldn't be his last if he hadn't been caught. Jasmine's social media tells the heartbreaking story of a woman trying to convince herself she'd found salvation. She posted videos of herself and Cordero with captions like, "That's my man, and I must stick beside him, and there's light after darkness." But look closer at those posts, and you'll notice something disturbing. In every single video where Cordero appears, Jasmine's smile never reaches her eyes. The most chilling post came just months before her death. Jasmine shared a photo of her new house and salon, thanking God for answering her prayers. She wrote about how she'd prayed to be able to stay home with her kids and work, and how God had provided everything she needed. What she didn't know was that Cordero was already planning to take it all away from her. Friends later revealed that Jasmine had confided in them about wanting to leave Cordero, but she was terrified of what he might do. She'd seen his explosive anger, felt his hands around her throat, heard his threats about what would happen if she ever tried to abandon him. She knew that leaving him might mean dying, but staying with him guaranteed a slow death of the soul. The tragedy is that everyone around Jasmine could see she was in danger, but nobody knew how to save her from a man who had already proven he was willing to kill to maintain control. The warning signs were screaming so loudly that it's almost criminal how many people in positions of power chose to ignore them. In August of 2021, Cordello Harris was arrested and charged with aggravated assault and domestic assault. But here's what makes your blood boil. The case was dismissed due to lack of prosecution. Someone in the district attorney's office decided that a pregnant woman's testimony wasn't worth pursuing. That pregnant girlfriend had told police a story that should have sent chills down every prosecutor's spine. She said Cordello had fired shots at her while she was driving, trying to escape from him. When she finally got away and called police, she made one statement that should have guaranteed Cordello never walked free again. He told me he would kill me if I left him. Those weren't empty threats from an angry boyfriend. Those were the calculated words of a man who had already decided murder was an acceptable option. But the system failed her completely. Maybe the prosecutor thought the case was too difficult to win. Maybe they were overloaded with other cases. Maybe they just didn't believe that a man would actually follow through on threats to kill a pregnant woman. Whatever their reasoning, their decision to dismiss those charges created a direct path to Jasmine Eason's murder. Here's what's even more infuriating. Court records show that during that 2021 case, Cordello's pregnant girlfriend provided detailed testimony about his pattern of control and violence. She described how he isolated her from family and friends, how he monitored her every move, how he threatened to kill her children if she ever tried to leave. This wasn't just domestic violence. This was a textbook case of intimate partner terrorism. The detective who worked that case later admitted in an interview that he believed the woman was telling the truth. He said Cordello's behavior during questioning raised every red flag he'd learned to recognize in 20 years of police work. But when the case got dismissed, that detective's hands were tied. He couldn't arrest Cordello again without new charges, and he couldn't warn future victims about what this man was capable of. Meanwhile, Cordello was free to refine his hunting techniques. He learned from that 2021 case that the system wouldn't protect his victims, that he could escalate his violence without facing real consequences. By the time he met Jasmine, he was more dangerous than ever because he knew he could get away with almost anything.
Kelly, Cordello Harris was charged with multiple charges, including second-degree murder. Court records show Harris first told police two men wearing ski masks kicked in his bedroom door, shot his girlfriend, Jasmine Eason, and then stabbed him at the home on Rainer Street Saturday morning. Police spoke with 3 of the 4 juveniles at the scene who contradicted Harris's story. Harris later told police he shot Eason after an argument. Eason's family said she was afraid of Harris and was always trying to defend herself from him.
This is the newly approved section phase 2, you guys. Second opening.
An entrepreneur who had dreams of taking her braiding business to the next level.
A hairstylist, she braided everybody here in the community.
Those dreams were cut short when 32-year-old Jasmine Eason was shot and later died in the hospital. According to police, the shooting happened on Rainer Street around 4:33 Saturday morning. When police arrived at the scene, they found Eason and Cordello Harris. Police said Harris said he was stabbed in the hand.
And this guy, he was an abuser. He abused Jasmine, and I think she was afraid of him, you know.
Eason's family said she was loving, caring, and wanted to help her family. She was the mother to 8 children. Her family said 3 of her children were home when she was shot.
They're going to have to go grow up without their mom, and they seen everything. They're going to need counseling and everything. Like, it's the world we live in is not right.
According to court records, in August 2021, Harris was charged with aggravated assault and domestic assault. The case was dismissed due to lack of prosecution. Those court documents show his pregnant girlfriend at the time said he shot at her while driving. The girlfriend said Harris told her he would kill her if she left him. 373 homicides have been reported in Memphis this year. A rising number of them include domestic violence situations. Eason's family said she was trying to get out of the situation with him because she feared for her life.
She just said that she was trying to get out of that situation with him, and he killed her. He didn't even give her a chance.
The family now wants justice for Jasmine Eason and is looking for representation and counseling options for her kids as they move forward after losing their mother. Cordell Harris is expected to be in court on Monday.
The community around Jasmine also missed critical warning signs that could have saved her life. Neighbors later told reporters they'd heard screaming coming from Jasmine's house multiple times, but nobody ever called police. They said they'd seen Jasmine with bruises and cuts, but they assumed it was none of their business. December 9th, 2023 started like any other night in the Eason household, but it would end with 3 children witnessing the most traumatic event of their lives. What triggered Cordello's final explosion wasn't some random argument or sudden burst of rage. According to police interviews with the children, Jasmine had finally found the courage to tell Cordello she was done with their relationship and wanted him out of her house. She had been planning this moment for weeks, quietly gathering the strength to face the man who had terrorized her for months. Friends later revealed that Jasmine had been secretly saving money and making arrangements for her and the children to disappear if necessary. She knew that leaving Cordello would be the most dangerous thing she'd ever do, but staying was slowly killing her soul. The argument began around midnight when Jasmine told Cordello to pack his things and leave. According to the 17-year-old's testimony, Cordello's response was immediate and terrifying. He grabbed Jasmine by the throat and slammed her against the wall, screaming that she would never leave him alive. The children could hear their mother begging for her life from their bedrooms. What happened next reveals the calculated nature of Cordello's violence. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of lost control. The 17-year-old told police that Cordello spent nearly 4 hours psychologically torturing Jasmine before he finally pulled the trigger. He would threaten to kill her, then apologize and promise to leave peacefully, then explode into rage again when she didn't back down from her demand that he go. The children's accounts paint a horrifying picture of those final hours. The 9-year-old heard Cordello telling their mother that if he couldn't have her, nobody could.
Good evening, Daniel. There is a suspect in custody. I'm learning that police got here to this scene at about 4:30 Saturday morning. This is Raynard Street, and we're actually only a few houses down from where that scene happened. You can also see that the crime scene tape is still lingering here at the corners from where officers had this area blocked off Saturday morning. I was told by one of the neighbors here that the victim had not been living here long. Now, police identifying the woman who was shot as Jasmine Eason, and the man arrested and charged with her murder is Cordell Harris. According to the affidavit, Harris changed his story. Now, at first he told police 2 men wearing ski masks kicked in his bedroom door, stabbed him, and shot the victim. Now, court records state that when Harris spoke to detectives, he admitted to shooting Eason, telling them that he and Eason got into an argument. The document alleges Eason stabbed Harris in the hand, and Harris grabbed a gun off the dresser, shooting Eason. Now, I spoke with a neighbor nearby who told us that he remembered seeing the couple come in and out of the home from time to time.
Oh, I hate it so bad. It's a tragic situation to me. I hate that, because I've seen them. I see them going and coming, getting in the car, leaving, going and coming back home, didn't give us any problem. I didn't know them. I just see them. I didn't know them. I had met the young man once or twice. Other than that, he's very intelligent with me. Other than that,
And again, Daniel, sadly, 4 minors were in the home at the time of that shooting. Now, here's what I'm learning about the charges that the suspect faces tonight. According to police, he is charged with second-degree murder as well as aggravated assault. There were also some drug and weapons charges on that docket as well. Daniel.
Fox 13's Lakia Scott starting our live coverage off at 5. Lakia, we'll see you at 9.
The 6-year-old watched through a crack in the bedroom door as Cordello held a gun to Jasmine's head while forcing her to call her sister and pretend everything was fine. The 2-year-old slept through most of the terror, a small mercy in this nightmare. At approximately 4 in the morning, Jasmine made one final attempt to escape. The 17-year-old testified that she heard her mother running toward the front door, screaming for help. That's when Cordello fired the shot that ended her life. The children said they heard their mother fall, then heard Cordello cursing and moving around the house for several minutes before he called 911. But here's where Cordello's true nature becomes crystal clear. Instead of calling for an ambulance immediately, he spent precious minutes staging the crime scene. He grabbed a kitchen knife and deliberately cut his own hand to support his story about being attacked by intruders. He moved furniture around to make it look like there had been a struggle with multiple people. He even practiced his story out loud, according to the 17-year-old, rehearsing his lies while Jasmine bled to death on the floor. When Cordello finally called 911, his performance was Oscar-worthy. He sobbed into the phone about masked intruders who had broken in and shot his girlfriend. He begged the dispatcher to send help quickly, claiming he was also injured and bleeding. But those 3 children knew they were listening to their mother's killer lie to the very people who were supposed to bring justice. When Memphis police arrived at the Rainer Street house, they walked into what appeared to be a straightforward home invasion case. Cordello Harris was bleeding from his hand, crying hysterically, and telling a compelling story about 2 masked men who had kicked in his bedroom door. His performance was so convincing that the first officers on scene actually treated him as a victim and rushed him to the hospital alongside Jasmine. But experienced detectives know that the most important witnesses in any domestic violence case are often the children, and those 3 kids were about to blow Cordello's story apart. When investigators interviewed the 17-year-old separately from Cordello, the teenager looked him straight in the eye and said, "He's lying. There were no masked men. He killed my mom." The physical evidence began contradicting Cordello's story almost immediately. Crime scene investigators found a 9mm handgun covered in blood, but it wasn't hidden or discarded like you'd expect from fleeing intruders. It was sitting on a table in plain sight, almost like someone had placed it there deliberately. The gun had been reported stolen during a car burglary in December of 2021, which raised immediate questions about how Cordello had obtained it. Even more damaging were the shell casings scattered throughout the house. Ballistics experts determined that multiple shots had been fired, but the pattern didn't match Cordello's story of a quick attack by intruders. Instead, the evidence suggested someone had chased Jasmine through the house, firing at her as she tried to escape. The blood spatter analysis painted an even more horrifying picture. Jasmine had been shot while running toward the front door, exactly as the children had described. When detectives searched the rest of the house, they discovered evidence that Cordello had been living a double life. Hidden in his belongings, they found a stolen rifle, several bags of marijuana, and cocaine packaged for distribution. This wasn't just a man with anger issues. This was a career criminal who had been using Jasmine's home as his base of operations. The breakthrough came when investigators confronted Cordello with the children's statements and the physical evidence. Initially, he stuck to his story about masked intruders, even when detectives pointed out the inconsistencies. But when they told him that his own stepchildren were calling him a liar, something in his demeanor shifted. Detective Maria Rodriguez, who led the interrogation, later described the moment when Cordello's facade finally cracked. She said he sat in silence for nearly 10 minutes, staring at the table, before he looked up and said, "Those kids don't know what they're talking about." But his voice had changed. The grief-stricken victim act was gone, replaced by cold calculation. When Cordello finally confessed, his new story was almost as disturbing as his original lie. He claimed that Jasmine had attacked him with a knife during an argument, forcing him to defend himself. He said he only shot her once, and it was an accident. But the evidence told a different story. Multiple gunshots, a chase through the house, and a woman who died trying to escape the man she had trusted with her life. The final charges against Cordello Harris read like a catalog of evil: second-degree murder, aggravated assault, 2 counts of possession of controlled substances, 2 counts of theft of property, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. Each charge represented another way he had violated Jasmine's trust and destroyed her family. What makes Cordello Harris particularly dangerous isn't just his capacity for violence. It's his psychological profile as a predator who specifically targets vulnerable women. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a forensic psychologist who has studied intimate partner homicides for over 15 years, reviewed Cordello's case files and identified him as what experts call a serial intimate partner abuser, a man who moves from victim to victim with calculated precision. The pattern becomes crystal clear when you examine his relationship history. Cordello didn't just happen to date women who were struggling. He actively sought them out. His 2021 victim was pregnant and financially dependent on him. Jasmine was a recent widow with 8 children and mounting bills. Both women were isolated from strong support systems and desperately needed someone to help them survive. Dr. Mitchell explains that men like Cordello use what's called trauma bonding to maintain control over their victims. They create cycles of extreme violence, followed by intense affection and promises to change. This keeps their victims in a constant state of confusion, never knowing which version of their abuser they'll encounter next. Jasmine's social media posts reflect this perfectly. One day she's posting about being blessed to have found love. The next day she's cryptically asking for prayers to get through difficult times. But here's what's truly chilling. Police investigators believe Cordello may have had other victims who never came forward. During their investigation, they discovered that he had been active on multiple dating apps, specifically targeting single mothers in the Memphis area. His profile always emphasized his desire to be a father figure and provider, exactly what vulnerable women with children want to hear. Detective James Thompson, who worked the case, told reporters that they received 3 anonymous tips from women who claimed they had dated Cordello briefly, but ended the relationships when his behavior became controlling. One woman said he had shown up at her workplace uninvited and threatened her coworkers. Another said he had tried to isolate her from her family by claiming they were trying to break up their relationship. The most disturbing revelation came from Cordello's own family members, who spoke to police after his arrest. His sister admitted that she had warned both the pregnant girlfriend and Jasmine about Cordello's history of violence against women. She said their mother had been abused by Cordello's father, and that Cordello had learned to use violence as a tool of control from watching his parents' relationship. What's particularly infuriating is that Cordello's pattern of escalating violence was documented but ignored by the system. The 2021 case wasn't just dismissed. It was dismissed despite clear evidence that he posed a lethal threat to intimate partners. Court records show that his pregnant girlfriend had provided police with text messages where Cordello explicitly threatened to kill her and her unborn child. Mental health experts who reviewed the case files believe that Cordello's violence was always building toward murder. Dr. Mitchell points out that intimate partner abusers typically escalate their violence when they sense their victim is trying to leave. The fact that Cordello had already threatened to kill one woman who tried to leave him should have been treated as a guarantee that he would eventually follow through on those threats. The domestic violence statistics in Memphis paint a horrifying picture of how common cases like Jasmine's have become. In 2023 alone, the city reported 373 homicides, with domestic violence situations accounting for nearly 30% of those deaths. That means approximately 111 people died in Memphis that year simply because someone who claimed to love them decided they deserved to die instead. The most heartbreaking aspect of Jasmine's murder is how preventable it was, and the warning signs that everyone around her should have recognized but failed to act upon. Domestic violence experts have identified specific red flags that, when present together, indicate a relationship is likely to end in homicide. Jasmine's relationship with Cordello displayed every single one of these deadly warning signs. The first major indicator was Cordello's rapid integration into Jasmine's life and home. Healthy relationships develop gradually, but abusers rush intimacy to establish control quickly. Within months of meeting Jasmine, Cordello had moved into her house, inserted himself into her business operations, and positioned himself as a father figure to her 8 children. This wasn't love. It was a calculated takeover. Friends and family members later revealed that they had noticed Jasmine's personality changing dramatically after Cordello entered her life. She became withdrawn from people who had been close to her, stopped attending family gatherings, and made excuses when friends tried to visit her home. This isolation is a classic tactic used by abusers to cut their victims off from potential sources of help and support. The second critical warning sign was Cordello's obsession with monitoring and controlling Jasmine's activities. Her sister told investigators that Jasmine had complained about Cordello checking her phone, following her to work, and demanding detailed explanations of where she went and who she spoke to. He had even installed tracking apps on her phone without her knowledge, something police discovered during their investigation. Perhaps the most dangerous warning sign was Cordello's escalating threats of violence when Jasmine tried to assert any independence. The children told police that they had heard Cordello tell their mother multiple times that he would kill her before he would let her leave him. These weren't empty threats made in anger. They were promises that he eventually kept. Mental health professionals emphasize that the most lethal period in an abusive relationship is when the victim attempts to leave. Statistics show that a woman is 5 times more likely to be killed by her abuser when she tries to end a relationship than at any other time. Jasmine's family knew she was planning to leave Cordello, which means they should have known she was in mortal danger. The system failures that enabled Jasmine's murder extend far beyond the dismissed 2021 case. Memphis police records show that officers had been called to Jasmine's address twice in the months before her death for domestic disturbance calls. Both times, Jasmine declined to press charges against Cordello, and officers left without making arrests. This is exactly when intervention programs should have been activated to help Jasmine develop a safety plan. Domestic violence advocates point out that victims often refuse to cooperate with police, not because they don't want help, but because they know that involving law enforcement might escalate the danger they face. Jasmine likely understood that calling police on Cordello could trigger the exact violence that ultimately killed her. The system needed to protect her, whether she asked for help or not. The most tragic prevention failure was the lack of follow-up after Cordello's 2021 arrest. Even though the case was dismissed, social services should have flagged him as a high-risk offender and monitored his future relationships. If proper protocols had been in place, authorities would have known immediately when Cordello moved in with another single mother and her children. Jasmine's murder could have been prevented if just one person in a position of authority had taken Cordello's previous threats seriously and treated him like the lethal predator he had already proven himself to be. Today, Jasmine's 8 children are living with the devastating reality that their mother was murdered by someone she trusted to protect them. The 3 children who witnessed her death, the 17-year-old, 9-year-old, and 6-year-old, are receiving trauma counseling, but experts say they will likely struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder for the rest of their lives. They not only lost their mother, but they also carry the horrific memories of watching her die while being powerless to save her. The youngest children, who didn't witness the murder directly, are dealing with their own trauma. Child psychologists explain that losing a parent to violence creates a unique type of grief that can affect every aspect of a child's development. These kids will grow up knowing that their mother didn't die in an accident or from illness. She was deliberately killed by someone who lived in their home and pretended to care about their family. Jasmine's extended family is now raising 8 children while also trying to process their own grief and anger. The financial burden is overwhelming, but the emotional cost is even higher. Every family gathering, every holiday, every milestone in these children's lives will be marked by their mother's absence and the brutal way she was taken from them. Jasmine's story dies with this video unless you subscribe to keep her memory alive and help us expose the predators who target vulnerable mothers. If you scroll past without subscribing, explain in the comments why her 8 orphan children don't deserve justice. Because every person who watches this story and does nothing is telling those kids that their mother's life didn't matter enough to click a button. We'll be reading every single response, and we'll remember who stood with Jasmine's children and who walked away when they needed advocates the most.